Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I try to make it interesting and also try to make it a little bit controversial. What's the point of having a webinar if you don't create some controversy? So the title, which is a mouthful, is 5 Ways to Use Generative AI to Drive Analytics Business Initiatives. So what it really means is that this generative AI is something new. So here we are to kind of share a few use cases that we feel it might or it might not. Again, these are things that we wanted to discuss that had some merits to start the conversation, start implementation with generative AI. So please ask questions, please be interactive. We don't have any polling here, but I appreciate that if you kind of participate in this and challenge me. Again, part of these things is this is new. I don't claim that I have all the answers. I don't think anybody has all the answers, but let's make it interactive, make it fun, and let's enjoy this. So here's kind of an agenda, a little bit about DvSum. Again, this is not a product pitch, this is not a company pitch, but it's kind of good to know who you're talking to. So one slide about us, DvSum. Then we look at who would be the users, technical people, non-technical people, both, none of the above. So kind of looking at the user, because it's always important, use case is one thing, but who's the user is as important. And then we look at some of these use cases more on the analytical side, with focus on analytics side, obviously. And then there are challenges. I mean, this thing is not fully fledged. This thing is not fully ready. Ready or might not be ready, but still there are challenges that needs to be addressed. It's not open up the box and everything is there. And then kind of talk a little bit about our approach. Again, this is not a product pitch, but kind of what is our approach, and then I open it for Q&A. So a little bit about DvSum. We are a startup in Silicon Valley. One thing make us kind of unique from many other startups is that we don't have VC money. We have been able to organically grow based on these wonderful and well-known customers that you see in the bottom of the slide. We are cash positive, we are growing very rapidly, but we don't have VC money. That doesn't mean that in the future we would not go into the capital market, but at this time, we are the master of our own domain. What we do, our goal is to be able to bring data insight for everybody within the organization, not just the data analyst, but the business user, the business analyst, and everybody pretty much. How do we do that? We do have this platform called a data insight platform. So we started as a data quality company. We expanded into the catalog, into the governance, and then that little thing came up called ChatGPT, and we were able to take pieces of that technology. Again, not the whole thing. We are not sharing anything with the web. Nothing gets out, and I get into that shortly, but be able to take the language layer of it and kind of offer something which is very unique on that. So this is who we are. Now let's get into the actual conversation. So we are, I don't know, I'm aging myself or not. Matt already said I've been in this business for 25 years, but those of you who remember the original Star Trek, the best version, by the way, I remember that at that time, Captain Kirk used to be able to ask questions like in a natural language. And we believe that after all this talk over the past number of years, we are finally at a stage, at the moment, that we can talk in a natural language to our data. So on the left is that ancient history of last year, and today we can simply say things and things get done the same way that Captain Kirk used to do it. Now, are there challenges? Yes. Are we out of the woods? No. But are we at the very critical moment? Absolutely. So, So who would be the audience? Again, this is very insightful, right? Either technical or not technical. Is anybody else left? But basically what we want to kind of open up is when it comes to the user, we kind of divided in two camps. The non-technical folks, the business user, the salesperson, the person in the marketing, the person in the operations, and then the technical, those who know how to code, those who are developers, who are historically, traditionally been the user of or the guardians of the data, right? Again, challenge beyond that, whether you agree with this or not. Just don't take my words for it. So for those non-technical, what this new generative AI is helping them to be able to get their job done without having any technical skills. They don't need to write codes, but they have all the advantages of being of accessing data using the natural language. What about the technical audience? I think this is more still questionable. Are they willing to move away from the traditional way of writing codes and getting really deep into more of using the language command? Yes, no, maybe. I think the answer is both yes and no. There will be certain things that they would never ever give away from writing codes, because you want to go very customized, very deep. And I think there are merits, and we're going to touch some of those that make sense for timing issues, for speed, for ease of use, that they use language command rather than writing the code themselves. So what are those use cases? If you look at, I pick up 5, and 4 of them actually on the technical. Now, we don't have polls here, but here, let me ask a question. Do you think the acceptance would be more with the technical folks or the non-technical folks? Do you think the initial use cases would be more addressing the technical needs or the non-technicals? Let's have a conversation about that at the end of this. And so if we go through, by the way, if you go through that, you will see that, as I mentioned, there are challenges. It's not that you open up, you push a button and everything goes up. We see 3 main challenges when it comes to generative AI. 1, data integration. Where do you get the data? How do you make sure that that data is holistic? How do you make sure that that data is quality? How do you make sure that that data has met your compliance, regulatory issues? So getting the right data and use the right qualified, compliant data is not an easy thing. Reliability and accuracy. How do you know that the answer you get, you ask the generative AI and gives you a number, gives you an answer? How do you know that that is accurate? How do you know it's not hallucinating? And then security. One of the key things when we talk about is that with a lot of the industry expertise, I want to make sure that my data, my information is not getting out, is not being both internally and externally. If the idea is that you can ask any question, I'm in marketing, I should not be able to ask about see the people's compensation. That might be HR capability, right? Or access. So looking at these things, there are challenges, but let's see how folks like us, DvSum, are trying to address some of those challenges. Let me pause here for a second. I'm going fast. Matt, any question, anything we need to address at this time, or I should keep going?
Hey, I've got one so far, Ali, and let me know if you'd rather handle it right now, or if it's going to make more sense at the end. But someone asking, hey, you've mentioned a bunch of use cases. Do you want to speak to the idea that would an enterprise normally start out with the technical use cases, or normally start out with the non-technical ones? We see they both exist, but kind of which one would you lead with?
That's an excellent question. And to me, I think it depends. This is so new, but what we are seeing, and at least been my observation, love to hear from other folks, is that at this moment, more of non-technical folks are more excited about this generative AI for one simple reason. They can do things, access the data that they never be able to do it. The technical people, they had to write codes, write SQL. They had their means to access the data, access the insight. Might not be the easiest or the fastest, but at least they could see that. A lot of the non-technical never had that. They always had to go through a third party, like their own data analyst team. But now they can. So my observation has been that the non-technical are more receptive. That said, without the help of their technical team, implementation of generative AI would be very challenging for what we already have. If your data is not being qualified or meet the compliance, which done by your technical team, then or the quality of data is not there, then whatever you get as a non-technical is not valid. So you will have that reliability issues. So I see it as a partnership, but in terms of reception, I see a non-technical would be more receptive at this time because they can access things that they never had before directly. I hope I answered the question. If not, let me know when we address more question at the end. So now let's look at some of those use cases. By the way, as a product manager, we're always looking for that killer apps, that big bad thing. But sometimes, especially when you are it is a new initial technology, sometimes it's better crawl, walk, and then run. So here, some of these use cases I have is not that big bad application, killer application. These are simple, yet they can meet and solve very specific problem. And I think one of the challenges I see in implementation of generative AI in general, but generative AI particularly, is that they go too big, they go too wide. So one of the recommendations is start something manageable, start something that is, you can accomplish it in a short period of time. You can show value to your organization, has measurable KPIs, but they might not be that cool, sexy killer app, but yet solve a specific problem like this one. Your data pipelines, right? What is it when you transfer the data from source to destination? There are many steps to going on. So you want to do a format change. You need to write codes. Now you can just say to do it. Changing the data types. So benefits of this application is that you can simply and easily, without even having a technical skills or writing code, in a very fast, easy way, be able to convert one format from one to another one, whether it's a database, whether it's a data part types, or whether it's a calculation. So and the list goes on. And these are mundane tasks. No self-respecting data analyst wants to spend time on doing these things, but the the generative AI, ChatGPT, can enable you to be able to do those kind of tasks much faster. So the point here is speed rather than ability to do it. Now, one other synthetic data. Okay, this is an area that can create a lot of controversial from the bias that comes because it looked at a very specific group of folks or didn't look at some of the fringe or corner cases, or you use material that it's doesn't belong to you. So in any way, if you want to train your AI, if you want to create making models, the ability to be able to create synthetic data that is not biased, it meets the corner cases, it's large enough to give you meaningful, and it's kind of within your target audience, that is very important. Again, there are many ways to do that, but using generative AI makes it much easier, much faster, and much more accurate. Plus, things like privacy issues or IP issues, those kind of things goes away. Again, I see a couple of questions. Again, I want to keep this one interactive. Let me pause here, Matt. If there is a new question, let me know.
Hey, thanks for the break in there, Ali. And we got one, and in particular, I think it's quite a good question. It's I don't know, paraphrase a little bit, but it's asking how can we measure productivity gains with the technology? And I think the premise is that clearly some technology gains are possible. We're trying to pick where to make them, but how do you measure such a thing? So that's a good question.
That's an excellent question. And I don't think there is one answer for it. As a product manager, we always love to say it depends. For example, look at it in a sales case. The ability to be able to close a deal in the moment. I think one of the key value proposition of generative AI is if the data you need is at the moment, you need fresh data, you need immediate data to answer a question, close a deal. I think that that is one of the key value proposition. If you can wait for a few days, you can go to your data team and they give it to you. The advantage here is that immediacy of the data, ad hoc, immediate, and fresh. So in the case of a sales, if I'm sitting with a customer and asking me what is the lead time, or give me the coding right now, I can be able to look at all what I need in the lead time, availability, delivery, all those things at that very moment and present it to my customers and be able to close the deal. Otherwise, if I say, okay, let me get back to in a day, you lose that momentum. How do you measure that? I think it's depend. We are also working or thinking and struggling actually with your question of how do you articulate the value of that? Somebody said you offload your data team. Okay, that's also because a lot of time if you have to go to your data team and bug them with questions that you only ask once, so for them creating reports or having something that is not a regular thing is the distraction and is the cost. But how do you articulate that? So basically, I'm saying it depends. I don't have a clear answer. At each case, you have to look at it, whether you're offloading the time that your data team is answering one-time questions, that could be a measurement, the time that you close a deal, the time that you can improve your inventory management using generative AI because you can access data in the moment. So these are the thoughts I have, but be honest with you, I don't know anybody has come up with that exact breaking the code for that. I hope that answers the question, or at least create more questions. So we talk about the synthetic data. The other one is data labeling. That also comes, you get this massive amount of data, and you want to make sure that you can understand what is it? Is it social security or getting meaning out of that? Again, there are tools that you can use in data catalog, data quality. We have our own AI that goes through and kind of interpret, understand, digest your data and come and tells you what it is. But again, be able to do that in a very fast, without writing codes, be able to do that at the moment with whatever file they throw at you, that has a value. So doing the data labeling, also another use case. Again, as I said, many of them might not be that cool, but they are practical. They are something you can implement now. You can show the results at this very moment. Now, let's look at storage. This goes a little bit on more of an IT side. What we are seeing more and more data is being captured, but that large capturing of data also create its own issues. How do you best optimize the access? How do you best optimize your storage capability? How do you reduce the cost? How do you make sure that it's your partitioning, your indexing, and those things are in the right part? So the more you can optimize your storage, you get faster queries, you get much better resource utilization, reducing cost, improving the performance. And even you can argue that maybe help you with the security a little bit. So that's another one. Now, let's go to the fifth one. This is the one it's my favorite, and you will see later on why. Because this is going a little bit more general. The other four were very specific. This one is kind of a more bigger, and to me, this is for a non-technical, and I'm spending more time on these. So basically, you can query your corporate data. What that means is that you are a sales, marketing operation. You can simply say, how many shoes, let's say I'm a shoe company, how many shoes, size 8 and 11, I sold in Germany last July. I can simply say that and gives me the data. And I can go deeper and say, how many were men, women, and children shoes? What was the best selling? So that gives me the ability to ask any question about my business based on the corporate data. So first of all, not everybody can ask every question because you have to have the right credential. If I'm a marketing, I can ask about those questions. But again, if it goes about somebody's compensation, there's some restriction on that. Basically, this is how can you ask any question as long as you have the right credential about your corporate data, and you're able to get that answer immediately so you can make a decision or answer a question. Let me pause here for a second. I see a couple more. I love it when the questions coming. Matt, do we have some new questions?
We do. Thank you again for pausing. Here, I've got actually two, and let me know in both cases, maybe if you're addressing it later, that's fine. We can wait, but they're really good questions. So the first from Edisham was asking about PHI and HIPAA, like protected health information and HIPAA protected information. How do you make sure, I guess it can apply to DvSum, but more generally, it could apply to any solution. How do you ensure that compliance is being followed and data is being kept protected? And then before you answer, the other question is a little bit different, but quite related, is from Marcos asking, well, the results depend on the quality of your data. And actually his question, not asking so much how do you have quality, but how does the technology measure its confidence in the quality of the data? And I can see where that's coming from. Even like the extreme is where the solutions are hallucinating data, but even less extreme, just knowing that it's got correct data. So I'll turn those two questions over to you, Ali, and address them either now or later as you like.
First of all, thank you for asking those questions, guys. I really appreciate that. I would address Marcus's in the next few slides. That's a good question. Now, the other question about HIPAA, right? When was it the third or fourth slide? We said that security, that also compliance. So when you are implementing generative AI, one of the key things is should not impact your existing current regulatory compliance, and if you are in a healthcare, HIPAA or other regulatory industries whatsoever. So there should be, and there are, safeguards built in. So if I'm not privy or having the credential to access patient records, I should not be able, because let's say I'm in the marketing. So those things needs to be addressed, and we have those as some of those challenges. I might touch that a little bit later on, but you're absolutely correct. And one of the key, we get two main questions. One is on accuracy, which I guess Marcus asked. The other one is on security and compliance. These are the two main challenges we see. I'm going to address them later on. If not, please ask the question again. Now, let's see some of the challenges we said. I think that was a good segue to go. Again, I don't want to do a product pitch, but we do have one unfair advantage over others. Again, not a product pitch, is that, as Mark's question asked, is in order to be able to make the right, for chat to work, it has to have the right data. By right means it be holistic, it should be quality, and it should meet the governance and compliance. And if you don't those, the answer you get is not accurate. So one of the things is that in order to implement this, you need to have those other three pillars built in. One joke I use with somebody is that you cannot buy a Ferrari if your city doesn't have any paved road. So having those three pillars of the catalog, quality, and governance is necessary for you to implement the chat. If those are not in place, then you need to have the paved roads before buying the Ferrari, basically. So, and that part of it goes to data integration that has to be implemented using those three pillars. reliability. One of the other things is that the data should be qualified. By the way, one of the features we do, if a number comes, you can click on it and go down into the lineage as far as you can, you need to see what tables it came, what databases, who owns it, who updated it, what's the quality. So there should, and there are, some mechanism built in that you just don't accept the number that is thrown at you. You have means and ways to go down and be able to verify whether that comes from the right sources or not. But the condition is that you have to have the right sources. And that goes part of your data integration, the reliability of your data. Also holistic. If you cannot find all the necessary data from your corporate, the answer is partial and might not be accurate. Going back to that, shipping shoes to Germany, if you don't have all the data, you might not get the right answer how many actually you shipped to Germany. And then the security. One of the other things that we find people are very concerned the moment the word ChatGPT comes is that, so you share my data with the internet? No. Do you use my data to train it? No. So one of the key thing about that is everything has to stay within the four walls of your business. Data should not get out. Data should not come in. If you're doing a search, should not go into the internet and use the data that you don't know where it's coming from to give you an answer. Unless there are cases that you want that enable it. You want access to Google Map for some zip code or something like that. But in general, the security part is that you have to make sure that everything stays within your four walls and everything is compliant to your business, whether it's a HIPAA or other regulatory, other compliance, or your corporate. These are the key things for this generative AI to be valuable. Otherwise, would create more harm than good. So one example is, I kind of mentioned that with the shoe, but let's make it kind of simpler. I'm a product manager. I'm sitting in a meeting with the engineering team, and we want to do an app for our patients. We are like a therapy, kind of a medical equipment company. And the question is Android or iPhones. I can immediately use the chat and get the answers. It's that simple. Again, this is easy examples, but you can have some very exotic questions asked, and means you ask, going back to the shoe example, how many shoes to Germany, how many per man and woman, what was the best selling, and get recommendation. Another thing that we see coming is not just providing you with the data, but also making recommendation. That's something that we also see is coming. But the point of this is that you can simply ask questions in natural language and be able to get an answer simply and easily without writing any code or be able to rely on anybody else's in the moment. I mean, that's the key thing for all this thing. Now, what's in the box for us? So one is that conversational AI piece, let's call it ChatGPT, but not the whole package, but the language piece. So be able to take your natural language. By the way, it doesn't have to be in English. I've tried it in other languages and it actually works. So you get that language. So get your language into the system. Then the data intelligence, that's those things. You need to have catalog, you need to have quality, you need to have your governance in place, and then also making sure that you kind of enable it with the right set of the data. And then you have that data query piece. So at the end of the day, what is for the user is you just need the browser and you're in business. What is done in the box is conversational AI, the data intelligence that goes through your data, understands your data, catalogs your data, qualify your data, governance and quality is there. And then these visualization that take the data into a format that you can understand, charts, tables, numbers, words, and the way you communicate, simply asking a question in plain old language. That's the beauty of This is another example. The way we see it in the left is today. You're a business user. You need to get question for those shoes you send to Germany. You have to go to your data analyst. You have to interrupt them. They have to stop some of the key projects they do because they need to answer you. And they might need to go to data engineers if the data is not there. What we are bringing on the right is you simply bypass and go through that. I'm making an example that kind of ages me. Those of you who remember the punch cards in the old days, even was before my time, that if you were a computer programmer, you're doing a punch card. Then you had to get those punch cards physically in your hand, walk to the IT, hand it over. They were running it for you, give the answer to you, and back and forth, right? This is similar to that. We want to make sure that your data analytical team, your data engineer team working on strategy key projects, rather than simply you ask them one-time questions. You can do those kind of things. By the way, we don't believe that generative AI is going to replace those pixel perfect reports that you have every week or every month for executives, for sales marketing. Is not a replacement for those. This is more of one-time ad hoc at the moment need for a piece of data or insight that would help you and enable you to independently go and do it yourself rather than interrupting the data analytical team with more important things to do. And the way it's, this is the last slide, is very easy that we at least set it up, whether you have the data on-prem or in a cloud. We don't move it, we don't touch it, it stays as it is. We create some, but defining the scope. By the way, you can have all your data. If you're in marketing, let's say only the marketing data, there is a lot of flexibility and you can write bots to do the context and you're in business. Very simple, very low touch from your IT department for analytical team department. The whole thing is designed to be done in a matter of days, less than a week, and you can go into the business. So that was my presentation. Again, I appreciate your patience with me. Let me pause here and see whether if there are other questions that I need to answer.
Hey, thanks. And we've got another one. Someone asking about the relationship between business users. I'm thinking like the line of business, someone responsible, for a business unit, and relationship with their data analysts. And obviously, there's some potential for a change here as people access data differently. And sort of, how do you see that dynamic, that power shift be between them?
So the way I see it, I see this generative AI as a service that your data analytical team provides to the rest of the organization. I think this is we are not seeing that you go rogue, you go independent. No, I see that I'm a data analytical team and I said, I'm being interrupted left and right by those questions about shoes to Germany. Why not enable them? They can ask it. So I provide a service that is not taking my time, is not taking resources from me. So I can put my time and resources on more strategic project rather than one time. So I see that from the data analytical team reaching out to the rest of the organization, provide them with the capability that they didn't have before. That's my view. Whether some organization would go rogue and implement it themselves, possible. At the same time, I see that many organizations are kind of holding off right now because they want to have an overall strategy about generative AI and not just simply go and implement one product for data analytics team. So we see all the time. But my view is that data analytic team should be in the driver and they should provide that as a service.
Got it. Thank you. And there's another one, and in fact, you already addressed it, or at least partially addressed it, but the idea of do you see generative AI as being replacing existing tools or becoming just a feature of existing BI tools, or being a separate thing that lives alongside them Again, you kind of addressed it, but if I could get you to say a few more words about that, Ali.
So my view is that this is not replacing your, even if you have generative BI, this is not going to replacing it. This is a complementary product or offering that added value to whatever tools you have. That is my view. We are not replacing, we are adding new capabilities. And still the BIs, just coding one company, not they said this is designed by data analytics analyst for the data analyst. And what we are seeing that this generative AI is for the business users, not the technical. Well, we saw some use cases for technical folks, but a lot of that is enabling other group within the organization who are not technical to be able to access it. So going back to the question, no, I don't see that replaces. I see that is a complementary to your BIs and kind of enhances the access to data and data-driven decision within the organization.
Okay, great, thank you. Hey, we got another one, a follow-up from Marcos that we'd had before. Not so much follow-up, but a brand new question is, you need training, do you need to learn how to ask questions to get effective use of the tool? And then in the context of, he's heard the term prompt engineer, and what does that imply about what sort of training is involved for the tool or for the people?
So I can talk, again, I said this is not a product pitch, but I can talk about our implementation. You basically need almost no training. It has enough intelligence built in that you can simply ask the question without using any special wording or special syntax. What would be helpful, and I'd love to set up some demo for you guys later on, is if you give it a context ahead of time. Hey, I'm here to ask these questions, or I'm here to do, to find out about this. Provide some context. We can call it prompt engineering, but it doesn't have to come. What we also find out for certain businesses, before we implement it, we talk with the team and can pick up some common questions or common context to add it ahead of time. So, but going to back your question, no, in general, you don't need to have use any special words or syntax. Training is as you go. You have that up and down. If you feel something is not right, you can give what I call human in the middle feedback, that no, this didn't answer my question, or this was not accurate. So you can train it that way as well. But no, it's minimum training, and that's one of the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's good. And actually, that's one I'm gonna stick in one extra detail, as my role is quite hands-on with the technology at DvSum. The way you can think of the prompt engineer is, and I think this will be parallel at other companies, so it won't be unique to DvSum, but you should think of, we have prompt engineers involved in making sure that your free text gets turned into what it needs to get the data back out of your system. So to the extent there can be a prompt engineer, but it's not you that needs to do the that needs to get trained. Rather, it's just part of the solution.
Right.
And actually that ties into, there was one follow-up question to that about vocabulary at different organizations, so that when you say customer or guest, what is it that you mean? And for sure, that sort of business glossary is something that gets defined in the product as you could think of that as the setup. Like that is part of what goes into defining your environment, analogous to just defining your connection to your data warehouse and technical pieces like that. You've got business pieces like that, and those will feed into your question, so they'll get understood correctly.
Correct. So yeah, you can. The glossary has, if you are a data analyst or data engineer, you can go do it in your data quality, data catalog piece. But you can also train it. Say, hey, for us, customer means somebody who has already paid us. If you have a check from somebody, that's definition of customer. Or profit, you can just go and tell it. From now on, the profit means after taxes or before taxes, whatever it is your corporate, and it remembers it. Has that intelligence that remembers what is being told, and keep it and use it for the future. Pretty intelligence. Again, I, I encourage you guys go on. Again, I keep mentioning it, but I keep maybe breaking it, not a product pitch, but go to our sites and be able to run it by yourself. Don't take my word for it. You can do some testing with no obligation, no cost, nothing, and see how good it is.
Okay. Hey, and with that, we've been through all the questions that came in. So I'll offer a big thank you from the DvSum team for everyone that's come today, and certainly to you as well, Ali, for putting the time together to prepare this. And as mentioned at the top, we will follow up to send out a link to the recording for folks who certainly who weren't able to make it here, or who had follow-up questions from this session. Any final words from you before we sign off, Ali?
Again, I want to thank you all for your patience, standing my conversation here. I really appreciate. Thank you. And again, I encourage you to go to our sites and don't take my words for it, and see what is there. We also have a lot of educational blogs and other content that talks about these use cases for manufacturing, for healthcare, because at the end of the day, if you don't understand the use case, then the conversation implementation would be very difficult. So I encourage you to go. My email is here. My number is here. If you need to get a hold of me, by all means, happy to have a one-on-one conversation as well. And again, thank you for being here.
All right. Hey, thanks all. With that, we'll sign off, and you'll hear from us later.
Bye, everybody.